I want to move in because of all your time and intelligence. I definitely want to talk about some of the external threats from the U.S. Or of the U.S. But since we're talking about courts and legal jargon, and that definitely is your wheelhouse.
I used to be, man. I'm a retired lawyer. I never want to do it again.
Well, what I want to talk about is the two-tiered justice system. Everybody talks about it, and I think everybody knows, something's going on. But I'd love to hear you describe what the two-tier justice system is and just go into some detail about it.
In short, the two-tier system of justice is the deep state's weapon of choice. And I don't mean just in court. I mean in the administrative state too. In all three branches of the federal government and in applications at the state level. So I used to be, before I started doing everything, I was a public defender for years. I defended the worst humanity had to offer, including terrorists. And the one thing I learned in that job was, our due process and our Constitution applies to everyone, or it doesn't work. And that's exactly what our founding fathers wanted. So I actually went in there and I was like, give me the worst of the worst. It was funny and ironic because all these liberals became public defenders. I became a public defender because I thought going to court was fun and litigating and investigating was cool. And these people would come in and my colleagues would be like, I don't want that case. I don't want that case. I don't want this case. I was like, we don't have a choice. You took this job because you're supposed to defend everybody. So the irony for me started there, but it wouldn't piece together till years later. And so meeting out that singular system of justice for everyone became a big part of my job. And then when I went forward through my career and when I got to DC and Main Justice and JSOC and all that, I would start seeing people in government, like places like the FBI and senior leadership positions in DOJ, making prosecutorial decisions based on a political election. My first big instance of that was Benghazi. I was the main justice lead prosecutor for Benghazi for a while.
No kidding.
And I remember this meeting with then AG Holder, and we had a deck of like 19 guys we wanted to prosecute. JSOC had them rolled up. And we wanted to get them all. They killed 4 Americans, It's a legit terrorist attack. And the basic general response from the FBI and DOJ leadership was, well, it's only politically convenient to get one guy. And they went and got basically the wrong guy. And then we prosecuted that wrong guy. Not that he wasn't a part of it. He just wasn't like the top tier of guys I would have gone after. And they screwed up the prosecution because they didn't listen to us and they didn't want to use the right evidence. And it was all political decisions.
What do you mean they didn't want to use the right evidence?
They wanted to, because half of that stuff was classified and they wanted to. I didn't piece this together then because we didn't have the whole fallout from Benghazi, the hearings, and the congressional review. That would take time to come in. But they wouldn't let us prosecute, I think, 16 of the 19 that I wanted. They didn't want half this evidence declassified. And I was like,
who is they?
Well, the leadership at DOJ, FBI, and the intel community obviously played a role in that. And so, we were just like, all right, we'll do the best we can. And for example, Katala, Greenbrier River, the guy that first got prosecuted, he is getting out for his participation in Benghazi, where he killed 4 Americans. He'll be out of prison before the next presidential election's done.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Why would we? Why?
I mean, I don't mean to laugh at it because it's so atrocious because they charge him with the wrong crimes. Nobody at the FBI or DOJ wanted to listen to how to turn intel into evidence, into a public display in a court of law. Everybody working on the case thought they were the best at everything. And the decision from the top down is we're only doing this guy. And if you get the prosecution wrong, which
what the fuck are we doing, man?
I don't know, bro.
What are we doing? Why are we even in? What the fuck are we doing?
It was my first kind of foray into it in terms of the two-tier system of justice. And it wasn't happening outside, right? My first experience with that was public defender land. Now it's internal. Now it's the administrative application at the executive branch level in Washington, D.C. And, then you have Russiagate, and then you have all these other things we'll talk about. But the best, I guess, definition of the two-tier system of justice I can come up with for your audience is the classified documents case.
Which one?
Which one? So let's use the two presidents, right? President Trump gets his home raided on a bogus WhatsApp warrant, which the FBI leaks to the media. Do you know whose name is in the FBI's WhatsApp warrant for President Trump? That was 65% redacted. Trump's name and my name. Then they redacted everything else after my name, which once it finally came out, it was completely meaningless BS. Then they go in there and they stage that photo display, and everybody's like, oh my God, look at all this classified materials. What they don't explain to the American public is he's a president, former president, Presidential Records Act. Bill Clinton did the same thing. Every president performs on the same thing. They can take what they want. That's the law. So you can't be prosecuted for possessing classified documents.
Well, can I add, and I don't know what was in the documents, but I mean, if you take, and I can't remember who I had this discussion with, it may have been Tim Parlatore, but if you take, I mean, when people say classified documents, taking classified documents wherever, to Mar-a-Lago or Joe Biden's garage or wherever it was, I mean, a lot of those documents, people, they make it sound like it's the nuclear codes or but what it actually is, or at least what it sounds like to me, or what I've been told, is a lot of it is just the daily schedule. Yeah. Hey, today you're giving a press conference here, you're doing this here, or you've got lunch with so-and-so, you got a couple of meetings, and then that day's over and that is no longer classified because it's already happened. But obviously you can't get the president's schedule out before it happens because, am I correct in saying that some of these documents that they're saying are classified are that type of...
You're correct, but my point is, under the law, it doesn't matter if he had the nuclear codes.
Okay.
The Presidential Records Act, and Bill Clinton took literally recordings of a classified conversation and took them when he left the presidency, and he put them in his sock drawer. It's called the Clinton sock drawer case. No bullshit. They went to federal court, the government, and the federal court adjudicated that President Clinton, as a president, has the Presidential Records Act. He can take what he wants. The court never even found out what was on the recording. It's that strong. And that's the law. So then why does this DOJ come in and say, well, it doesn't kind of apply to Trump? And then you interview Joe Biden, and he was never president. He had 4 different locations of 20 years of classified information. Delaware, his offices in Washington, D.C., and 2 other locations, his beach house and somewhere else. But their excuse to not prosecute Joe Biden was, well, basically he's too inept. He's too feeble-minded, so we're not going to prosecute it. I've never heard that.
That's legitimately why they didn't prosecute
That's what
him?
the special counsel appointed to the investigation told Attorney General Garland, and Garland came out and literally said, well, we don't think Joe Biden meant to do it. And I was like, what? I was like, we're back to the Clinton case, the Clinton server case, right? It's like when Comey created this new legal fiction. No reasonable prosecutor, first of all, it's not the FBI's job to ever make a prosecutorial decision, but no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case. I was in the National Security Division at the time. I was doing the discovery for Benghazi where we found her freaking email. And then they took that investigation away from us. And then it became the Clinton investigation, right? That everybody now knows about. I was like, who is this guy talking about? And then I didn't think it would happen, but it did. It came back full circle with the Biden administration, or the Biden prosecution of classified docs. And they let the guy off the hook. And they just said, doesn't matter. So we'll prosecute a guy who has a legal justification to have those documents because we don't care. It's Trump. And we won't prosecute the sitting president because you've made up a new legal standard that applies to exonerate him and to not even charge him. That is the 2-tier system of justice on steroids. And now you're talking about the 2 guys who are running against, now they're not, but 2 guys who were then running against each other for the presidency of the United States.
Where else is this happening?
Man. Everywhere. Unfortunately, So we saw it every day on people who are indigent and charged with serious offenses who were treated differently than folks who were, high-level private sector individuals. I mean, if you go to the fraud cases out of Wall Street or whatever, these guys get to go to Club Fed for, a couple years, 10 years, whatever. But the poor guy down at the end of the ladder, he's going away for 40.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a legal expert to have seen this over the years. And the classified documents case, that's just, you can apply what they did there out to what they're doing to certain Jan 6 defendants. And I always say this about Jan 6. Some people committed some pretty violent stuff. They need to go away. But when you're bringing in the 65-year-old grandmother who doesn't have any priors and she's held without bond for years to force pleas so that you can weaponize and politicize the two-tier system of justice even further, so that Christopher Wray, the FBI director, can go to Congress and lie and say domestic terrorism prosecutions are on the rise because they classified everything Jan 6 as domestic terrorism. And so that he can say, him and Merrick Garland can say, oh, we've got 1,000 people under investigation for this insurrection. Well, this insurrection that nobody was ever charged for. But it's a political narrative, and it's tough to defeat. It sounds pretty lethal, storming of this, hijacking of that, insurrection. But when you look at some of the people involved, their lives have been destroyed by the Justice Department because of a political vendetta they want to enact through the justice system to take out Trump.